G4 November Romeo Charlie, operated today by Greg, Golf Sierra Delta Uniform Bravo, serving as net control for the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net. This net meets each Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time and is open to all amateur radio operators interested in emergency communications. Primary purpose of the net is to provide the opportunity for members to test equipment, exchange traffic, news, opinions and information. Additional information can be found at www.raynet-uk.net. This is a directed net, which means all calls have to be made to the net control station unless you are instructed otherwise, and all RAYNET UK operators are invited and encouraged to check into the net. When you do check in, please announce your call sign slowly and phonetically, and if followed by your name. And if you wish to leave the net immediately after checking in, then please call in and out. If you wish to leave after subsequent turns, please make it clear you want to check out at that time. After I've heard a few check-ins, I'll repeat what I've heard, and if you're not acknowledged, then please do try again, and I will call for any strays after all the UK stations and after the international liaison stations as well if you miss your turn. So I'll now begin taking check-ins, as usual, in call sign number order, starting with stations with figure 8. Figure 8 in their call sign. Please call now. That is G4 and RC. Over.
Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie. Good afternoon, Greg. G8 KLC.
G8 EEY Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Name is Mike. Golf 8 Sierra Delta Uniform. Name is Bob. In and out.
G4 and RC. I've got Phil, Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie, and Mike, Golf 8 Echo Yankee, staying with me. And Bob, good afternoon to you, Golf 8 Sierra Delta Uniform, who's in and out. Any other 8s, please? G4 and RC, over. Nothing heard, so we'll go for 7. Stations figure 7. Figure 7 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
G4 in RC, Golf 7 Delta Papa Echo. Her name's Jim, and I'm in, over.
Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar.
G4 and RC, I've got Jim, Golf 7 Delta Papa Echo, and Dave, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. Any other 7s, please? G4 and RC, over.
G7 on the H, Golf 7 November Echo Hotel.
G4 and RC, good afternoon, Graham, who's also in the live stream. Okay, let's go to 6s. Stations figure 6 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Mike 6 November Yankee India. Alan, Planet Raynet, in and out, please, Greg.
G4 and RC, good afternoon, Alan. Mike 6 November Yankee India, and copied you in and out. Any other 6s, please? G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, nothing heard, so let's try for the 5. Stations figure 5 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, nothing from our handful of 5s, so let's go for 4s. Stations figure 4 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
G4KIL.
Golf 4 Kilo Uniform Juliet, Primary Warfare. For NRC, I've got Philip, Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, and Trevor, Golf 4 Kilo Uniform Juliet. Any other fours, please? G4 NRC, over. For NRC, nothing more of the fours, so let's go for threes. Stations figure 3 and their call sign, please go ahead, over.
Golf 3 Victor Echo Hotel. First in Winchester, good afternoon, Greg. In and over me this afternoon. G3VH.
Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, Ian.
G4 NRC, good afternoon, Chris, Golf 3 Victor Echo Hotel, who's in a mountain in sunny Winchester, and thanks for calling in and checking in. Next, Ian, Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, good afternoon to you. Any other threes, please? G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, nothing heard, so let's go for twos. Stations with figure 2 in their call sign, and that includes the intermediate twos. Please call now. G4 NRC, over. For NRC, second call for any stations with figure 2 in their call sign, including the intermediate twos. Please call now. G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, nothing heard, so it's stations with figure 1. Figure 1 in their call sign. Please go now. G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, second call, any stations figure 1 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 NRC, over. Okay, false sense of security, here we go for the Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier. Please call now. G4 NRC, over.
It was you, JSA, I got in first, Alan.
In Loughborough and out the in and out.
Zero Whiskey X-Ray Golf, Shirley in Cornwall, in and out. Thank you, Greg.
Mike 0 India Tank. Andy with Shirley in Cornwall, also in and out. Thank you, Greg.
There's G4 NRC, 20 false sense of security. Alan, Mike 0 Juliet Sierra Alpha, you're still last though. Copied you, and Les, Mike 0 Juliet Victor Zulu, Shirley, Mike 0 Whiskey X-Ray Golf, and Andy, Mike 0 India Tango Mike, all acknowledged, all in and out, and thanks for checking in today. Any other Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please? G4 NRC, over. For an RC, then it's any Golf stations, any Golf Zero stations, any Golf Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier. Please call now, G4 and RC. Over.
Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Name is Andy, Pembrokeshire RAYNET. Good afternoon, Greg. I do have traffic today. Over.
For an RC, good afternoon, Andy. Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Look forward to getting that traffic in a moment. Any other Golf Zero stations, please, for G4 and RC. Over. G4 and RC, let's go for the strays. Any UK stations who've missed their turn to call in, please call now. That's any UK stations who've missed their turn to call in, please call now. G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, then. The Mike India 6 stationary doubles. Try again, G4 and RC, over.
Apologies, I had to put you on the I'd open up the channel there. MA6XGZ, in and out.
Mike India 6 X-Ray Golf Zulu, no problem, and got your copied as in and out. Thanks for coming along today. Okay, any international liaison stations on the talk groups? That's usually Node Samband of Norway, Aran in Ireland, Aries in Slovakia. Any international liaisons, please? G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC is the final call for anybody who's missed their turn to check in of any nationality. Please call now, G4 and RC, over.
Mike 7, Mike Lima Charlie, Martin in and out.
7, Mike Lima Charlie. Good afternoon, Martin, and copy to you in and out. Thanks for that. That's 18 check-ins over our usual 1% of the RAYNET membership. So, big breath. This net is being live streamed by Graham G7NEH to YouTube today. Live stream and recording are available by searching G7NEH. That's Golf 7 November Echo Hotel on YouTube. Foreign news first. Flooding in the Emilia-Romagna region of Spain has been the subject of a response from the amateur community. Alberto, India Kilo 1, Yankee Lima Oscar of RNRE, one of the emergency communications organisations in Italy, reports that regional emergency headquarters were activated with an amateur radio net on standby, but most operations were from amateurs directly affected in the region using local VHF repeaters which stood up when normal communications had failed. The national level authorities in Rome were not involved other than to arrange pumps and other support through the European relief mechanism, some of which is known to have been sent by Slovenia. Sometimes when that happens, radiometers travel along with that equipment, so we'll watch that one develop. The situation is now improving in the country with no further increase in water levels and actually starting to decrease in some areas. Our own weather in the UK is quite good. High pressure dominates, which is good for VHF propagation as well as the plants, but next weekend does bring the LDWA 100-mile walk in the West Midlands and the prospect of QRM with at least 4 other events around the country, which might use talk-throughs, etc. Noting that a number of groups have also had consecutive events today, like mostly half marathons by the look of it. Please be aware that as we move deeper into event season, there's an increased chance of QRM, and please consider what actions you would take to work around this. So that makes the talking point that most events are rigorously pre-planned. But do you actually know what to do should a talk through fail or your control station not be able to carry on? Okay, let's do the rounds and see what comment that provokes. Phil G8KLC, I know I still owe you an email, and the person who's holding you up is probably me, since I've not been able to get the right plugins to give you the access required on a WordPress site. G8KLC, G4 and RC, over.
Yes, G4NRC from G8KLC. Okay, great, very good afternoon to you and everybody else. And okay on the email. Yeah, I fully understand. No panic. We've been very lucky so far in Lincolnshire. We've not suffered from any QRM or anybody deciding that they wanted to use the particular repeater that we were using. It's been great. It's been great. Whenever we've needed to use the equipment, it's worked and nobody's objected. In fact, one or two people were quite happy. So that's good news. If control goes off or becomes unavailable, then I would have thought the briefing notes would have told people what to do, or standard training. But as we all know, there is no standard training at the moment. We just have to hope that the groups have stumbled over that problem and can deal with it properly. What else was there? Okay on the weather. Well, very close to there for the grace of God. Anne and myself have just come back from 16 days in Italy, and we passed through the affected region. We got caught in some fairly heavy showers in Venice, but it was just heavy showers. And it obviously developed into something much worse as we passed through and left. So I'm obviously doing something right. But apart from that, no further traffic. G4 NRC, G8 KLC.
G8 KLC, G4 and RC returning. Yes, if I hadn't had the sort of thing brought to my mind about the half marathon we've covered in West Cheshire today, yes, that line about standard briefings and or briefing notes is something that's an omission in ours. We haven't designated a second station that might be able to pick up what's going on. So it's just an interesting talking point. And I had a business trip to Venice, and we missed out on the tornado that passed through the area where we were staying. So it is a little bit turbulent round there at times, but I'm glad you're back safe. Okay, next to Mike, Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4NRC from G8EY. Yes, all noted. Weather here, yeah, 15 centigrade, 1022 millibars, and it's set to rise. So yes, definitely high pressure. 61% relative humidity, 19% cloud cover, so it's not exactly Scorchio. Winds are 12.8 miles per hour from 25 degrees. From the point of view of backups, we always tend to stay flexible. We use anything from 4 meters up to 23 SEMS, and usually run mobile on 2 meters, but carry at least 2, if not 3, handhelds on different bands available, so that we can do that, but flexibility is the thing. Just a reminder for anybody who's registered for heat alerts or cold weather alerts with the Met Office, you'll need to re-register before the 1st of June. It's all changing a bit, but that's just a reminder from G8EEY.
Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC. You beat me. I couldn't quite type everything down without leaving too long a gap. Okay, wasn't aware that there was a re-registration required for heat or cold weather alerts, so, well, not that it's something I'm generally signing up for at the moment, but might do given the way it is forecast to be quite a reasonable summer it feels at the moment, all depending on what happens in the Pacific. Backups, interesting. As we know from this net, my group's been trying other bands once a month, tried 6 meters, 4 meters, etc. 4 meters last night was very strange. Very local stations were going from fully readable down to absolutely unreadable. And the only thing I could find was that there was a chance of apparently some sporadic E on 70 megs. I'm not sure whether that will have affected things to that degree, but it was taking stations from perfect down to absolutely unreadable, and it was slow cyclic as well. It wasn't random interference. So yes, more is better rather than being focused on one solution. Right, thanks for that, Mike. Next to Jim, Golf 7, Delta Papa Echo, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, G4 NRC, G7 DP returning. Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think we're fairly fortunate. I'm sat in the garden at the moment, a clear blue sky apart from the contrails from the aircraft crossing over and those in the background heading in towards Heathrow. Yeah, I think we're very lucky. Regarding talk-through, alternative frequencies on the briefing notes are available to our members and what to do in the case of. Luckily, there's only a couple of events that we need talk through on because of the topography of the Chiltern Hills on the half marathons. It's a necessity. But on local stuff, we always have DMR as a backup. Other than that, not a lot else to say. But we were in very close contact with Ray Clark with regards to the Waddesdon horse event, which coincided with our Marlow 5, which you probably would have seen in the news last Friday. Anyway, back around to you, Greg. G4 NRC, G7 DPE.
Golf 7 Delta Papa Echo, G4 NRC returning. Yep, that's fine. Nice jog there that you liaise with other groups when you can see something's coming. So talking to Ray is useful. Just reinforces putting things in the diary so that you can see, as I could see, we've got the LDWA 100 as well as a few events, hopefully far enough away. But we have had QRM on a Cheshire event from Oxfordshire and so on, so it has the capability of happening from time to time. Right, I think he's going to confirm he was coming in today through System Fusion. So Mike 7 up for Victor Oscar from G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. Yes, good afternoon, Greg. Yeah. Good afternoon, Greg. Sorry, I was testing a new mic and I noticed the PTT light went up. Probably not pressing the button not enough. But yes, you're correct. The coming in through the fusion route again using a little Yaesu. But as I said, I've just acquired a new Yaesu mic for it. So just giving it its first run out today. The other answers to your question with a breakdown of frequencies on events. Other events I've done with yourself, there's always been backup frequencies available, and we know that if control disappears, we can search to the backup frequencies, and I'm sure other methods could be used in case of emergency, a quick text or message to other members just to change frequencies. But yeah, back to you, Greg. Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar.
Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, G4 and RC returning. Okay, yes, your new mic is taking some getting used to. It'll just take a little bit of time. I usually get a bit worried with the little Linko mic that's hopefully on camera that I'm actually over-pressing it because I don't want the transmission to drop. And if I see something in fringe vision that says I've stopped transmitting, shouldn't have been me. obviously good talking points, and yeah, I think there's things that probably merit looking at. Certainly repeater use. When a repeater goes down, people will pop up on the output frequency of the repeater because they know where everybody will be listening, but without talk throughs it's not quite so cut and dried. Anyway, next on the person who saw several thousand more runners than I did today on the Chester Half Marathon, Graham. I still don't know how many finished, but it was in excess of 3,200, I'm sure. G7NEH, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, G7NEH. Yeah, okay, Greg, no problem. I've just finished putting all the stuff away. Yeah, there's certainly, me and Lisa felt there was certainly more than last year, given the amount of runners that went past us. So I think the weather worked out very well for them. It was overcast when they were running, and the sun didn't start beating down till the race had nearly finished. So that was quite good. So on to viewing figures last week. There was 27 views and 5 likes on the net, and that's it really. And obviously we're streaming today, so hit that like button if those that are watching. So not a lot else to add from this end. G4NRC, G7NH.
G4NRC returning. Yes, did look like for those who, I know it's rainy a bit further north, but we had 20-ish degrees peak today in Chester, light winds, and it was a tie whether it was going to be full sun or slightly overcast, and if it was overcast it would have been good running weather, so that's what we got, which was a relief. St John were kept suitably busy anyway, which made them feel happy in their own sweet way. Okay, thanks, Graham. Catch up with you later about anything else from the events. But next to Philip, Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, G4KIR. Thanks, Greg. We had an event today, a lot smaller than the ones you described there. I think we were a total of about 500 going through 2 different routes. So I only saw about half of them where I was. It was a bit muddy for the people taking part in the event, and we have somebody coming up behind on a bicycle. I think he found it particularly challenging with the mud on the bicycle, but it was quite helpful there. Went very well for us, no particular issues, which was lovely. The temperature we were talking about. Well, I think I looked at the local web reporting about 17 degrees here, so it sounds like not quite as warm here as we've got it sounds like elsewhere. Very pleasant here, really. Comments about the control failing. That's an interesting point. I mean, I'm sure we would cope, but it's probably a good point whether it should be formalised a bit more. QRM with other events. We have had that once. I remember having it once before, and they discussed it with the other event, as it were, and they moved. I mean, generally, we'd probably, if push comes to shove, have to work with different CTTSS, but of course that could cause problems still. But one thing we do have is we've amongst our group we've designated various frequencies as a sort of a V1, V2, V3 for VHF, U1, U2, U3 for UHF, which could be at least we've got a way of telling people where to go fairly quickly, providing we can get it through. What else to mention? I think I mentioned on our Monday net had been linking Zoom with the net, now linking Teams. That's gone quite well. The only slight nuisance with Teams is with Zoom I could log on twice myself quite easily, which I was wanting to do because I couple the radio to the Zoom through my laptop and then join the Zoom myself through my phone. Not quite so easy with Teams. I don't think it will allow you to have 2 on twice with the audio on both. The only workaround is to log one on as a guest through incognito, which I managed to do once, but it's a bit of a nuisance. But we're looking at other workarounds for that, possibly. Wayne can mention. I mean, I'm actually controlling our local net tomorrow night, 144.625. If anybody, I just wanted to join with formal biddies from 8:30 to 2:45. Prefer if you didn't interfere with that, but after 2:45, we say going to chat mode. If anybody wants to join in there, that would be absolutely fine. That's it from me at the moment. I'm not rushing off, so I'll let you go around and give the stand down when it comes properly, as it were, today. Thanks, Greg. Back to you from G4KL.
My turn for finger issues. G4KIL, G4NRC. Okay, 500 on this new event today. Well, yeah, we had an event which was only 20 or 30 at its peak, so it's literally horses for courses. Today's event, though, surprised me a bit because its UK athletics licence is for up to 7,000 entrants, which we've never had that many. I think the best we've had is maybe 4.5, possibly 5. And really wondering what would happen if we did get 7,000 on the course. It would be very busy for a while. Noted about teams and not allowing 2 concurrent connections. Not tried that one myself at my last show and tell to anybody. Though, actually, yes, I thought that was on Teams because I did a walkthrough of FLDigi for a group, and I'm sure I managed to appear twice on that. But I shall have an investigate, but at least you found a workaround. Incognito mode is quite useful. Okay, there's some other stuff in there, but I'll remember it when I come back for the second round. We'll go to Trevor, G4KUJ, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC in the group, G4KUJ, yes, good afternoon, Greg and everybody else. Okay, to Phil, and I had found out on the grapevine that you'd been doing a trip down to Italy. I hope that all went well despite the heavy rain. What have I been doing this week? I've been mainly playing with Kilo 100 and data modes using FLDigi, with some interesting results in that Olivia seems to be the most consistent and reliable mode, and I've got that working reliably from 16,500 right up to 32,000. But RSID does not necessarily work reliably, I found through the satellite, and I think been doing some tests, both duplex listening to myself and also testing with David G in 0TGC. I think he's finding similar results, but there is certainly promise there for using data and FLDigi via the satellite. And with my systems locked to a GPS standard, I've now established that my frequency accuracy is within sort of plus minus 25 hertz or thereabouts of nominal frequency. So that's what I've been playing with this week. G4NRC in the group, G4KUJ.
UJ, G4NRC returning. Okay, yes, because I've had the question on email. Olivia has just been a good mode for working very weak signal stuff, minus 10 dB or more below the noise level. So it wasn't too surprised that it worked. When I was being asked some questions, though, you do need to look at what the underpinning tones are doing, and I am wondering if we're finding Olivia's working better than some other modes because of the way each carrier is actually being modulated. Is it analog or is it phase or whatever? RSID, I did have to make a point in the demo session that it can be a bit of a nuisance on very narrow modes because it has the chance of pulling the set your signal off frequency. So if you're using something narrow like PSK31, then the receiver, on hearing the RSID tones that are much wider, gets dragged all over the place and then just misses what it's meant to be listening to. And with hindsight, if that's what might be happening to you in very small ways through the satellite on our MT63, which is the mode you're having difficulties with. Anyway, thanks for the input on how that's progressing. I think we've got 3 stations left on this turn, so Ian, Golf 3, Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC, G3 ZHX. I was expecting you this time. Yes, QSY during an event. The last event I was on, I was running talk-through. We had a QSY the night before, just after I'd programmed the talk-through up, so I had to reprogram it. And then, as I was setting up, we had another QSY because we were clashing with what I understand was a group who were not in the diary. So this is a mention why you should actually put your entries in the diary. It does give us a chance to work out who is coming in. They apparently Control had to listen to the channel for a while to work out who it was, and then Cathy rang them. In the end, we had a live QSY, and Ray turned up on site. Ray G8GQJ, who's been mentioned already this afternoon, turned up on site and reprogrammed my radio for me while I was faffing around with the connections. So that was my most recent experience of QSYing. About 10 years ago, before the problems in Ukraine, we actually had a Ukrainian we were running on the same day as VHF Field Day, and we had a Ukrainian station coming in on the 77 input, which really surprised me. And Cathy worked him for a few points, and eventually we got going, and he stayed off our channel very kindly. Anyway, that's QSY for you. The only problem we had on that last event I just mentioned was that it was progressive, because the teams were working around an 80-kilometre course. Some of the outstations were being opened up during the event, and we did have some trouble communicating with them, getting them on the channel, but in the end all seemed to be working. My only advice really is if you try and protect your talk-through and it's not there, just hunt around to see if one of the other talk-throughs is on. There's, of course, if you have multiple talk-throughs, which we did on that occasion. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Greg. This is G3ZHX.
G3ZHX, G4 and RC. See, that's why I needed the second prompt for what I was going to reply to Philip, who was going to use CTCSS, because as well as asking, could you actually reconfigure your net in the middle of an event? Having the ability to actually reconfigure your CTCSSs has eluded some operators on an event we did some years ago. And it was very frustrating that the guy couldn't hear us, but we could hear him, and even knew what wrong tone was being used. And it did take a drive out and a tap on the shoulder to sort things out. So, yes, do you know how to run your own radio? It can be a problem sometimes with so many functions on it. Right, Alan, Mike 0, Juliet Sierra Alpha, G4 and RC, over.
Good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon, everybody. We haven't had trouble with concurrent events, more consecutive. We had a midnight walk for a hospice last night, started at 10 p.m. And the last checkpoint closed at 3, followed by a Woodbridge 10k race today at 10 o'clock. So been quite busy. We have been looking at QSY and doing events, and what we've been doing is putting out 4 or 5 frequencies in the briefing notes as alternatives to the normal ones. But we have been trialling this weekend, possibly successfully, but I'm not convinced. The idea of having a WhatsApp group
for the WhatsApp group for the event. So all the operators on the event are on the same WhatsApp group. So then, of course, you can send messages on there for QSY to whatever. I personally found it very distracting because obviously other messages then got passed, and each time I went ping, you had to look at what your phone was doing rather than listen to the radio. So there'll be some positive feedback for that at the next meeting and some negative feedback. But that was how we got around the problems this last weekend, or this weekend. We had about 1,200 walkers on the hospice event, and according to the organiser, they'd already pledged £90,000, and she was expecting that to hit the £100,000 target, so we were quite pleased with that. That was worth standing outside in the cold for several hours. I don't know if I'll still be here for the next time round. I've got to be somewhere at 5, so I'll say I'm out now, but I'll listen for as long as I can, Greg. G4NRC M0JSA.
JSA G4NRC returning. Okay, right, 4 or 5 frequencies. Yeah, I think it's something we'll have to look at and having more defined fallbacks. I have no idea how much money the various runners on our half marathon today will have made for their various causes. I think the organisers try and collate what the benefit is, but with so many runners and so many organisations, it's difficult. Interesting using the WhatsApp group. It's okay while comms are up, but some of this is meant to be for practice for when real communications have failed, so don't get too reliant on the WhatsApp group. We did have a little smile today that St John were using POC, inverted commas, radios, which obviously work as push-to-talk over the cell phone system, but there were areas on the course which were not well covered, which is why we're there, so we wound up being a home for a couple of St John cyclists for a while until they could be removed into a better position so they could get contact. So I shall watch the wheel turn and people go back to real radio as we start turning off 3G networks and stuff around here and finding out where all the 4G and 5G signals have gone or not. Right, 732 Alan, enjoy the rest of your day and recover well. Next to Andy, Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray, with thanks for promoting your HF NVIS requirements. I've looked at it, I'm just trying to figure out whether a 6-hour round trip is doable or not. GW0, JLX, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC, GW0, JLX. Thank you, Eric. And right, well, same again. RAYNET Pembrokeshire are still seeking help from other groups or individual operators who've got both 2 meters and 80 or 40 NVIS capability usable in a mobile or portable environment. The event is to be held on Saturday the 17th and more particularly on Sunday the 18th of June. It's called Gritfest, and we've got anything up to 2,000 cyclists taking part in a variety of these off-road type forest track races, time trials and all the rest of it around the Clanbrian Reservoir area. The terrain challenges are incredibly significant here, and hence the use of HF NVIS as well as the more traditional 2-meter stuff. The control site is to be located in a village called Sundeermine in Carmarthenshire, and if something were to happen with control for any reason, we operate a backup system. So the person who is operating or sitting on the talk-through locally will take over the control function for the time being until control have got themselves sorted out. QRM, well, that's always a problem because obviously the hills are incredibly high in some of the places that we've got. So we always issue, as part of our instructions to everybody, 3 frequencies: primary, secondary and reserve for each of the bands. And because there is no phone signal whatsoever, although it has been tried on one or two occasions in the past, I'm afraid WhatsApp is not a whole lot of use to us. So that's the usual setup as far as we're concerned. We try very hard to make sure that we've got every single base covered, from the diary entry right the way through to the final event, and we have always got a reserve frequency that's well away from everything else as well. So if there is something going on at the bottom end of 2 meters, for example, we can QSY to a different place altogether. Right. Trust that fulfills all the needs. Thank you very much indeed. Please be kind enough to sign me out on this one. 73, and all the very best. Back to you, Greg. Over.
W0 JLX G4 and RC returning. Okay, Andy. Right, re-noted everything down in the log. 3 frequencies to members for each of the bands. Yeah, we usually go V because our events are slightly flatter, slightly closer in Cheshire. It's usually VHF and fall back to UHF or vice versa. We don't generally have backups within a band, but it's something we can think about. But yes, the next challenge around is some people around the country might only have one talk-through operator rather than having 2 there ready to stand ready to pick up everything if needed. Because that's how that group works. But sounds like you've got a handle on it, and copied you out on that one, and we shall keep promoting your event until hopefully you get enough support. Excuse me. Okay, so might be a short second round. Let's see what that's provoked with thoughts from everybody that's still on the net. G8KLC, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, G4 and RC, G8KLC. No, I'm sure that's provoked all sorts of thoughts, but nothing immediately comes to mind. It's nice to see that people have been thinking about it, and some groups have things in place. And I'm sure other groups will start thinking a little bit more about it and put things in place, which is great news. So nothing further, Greg. G4 NRC, G8KLC, 73 to all.
Let's try that one again without the packet dropouts. G8KLC, G4 and RC. Okay, all acknowledged, Phil. Well, this is the joy of a national net like this. We can share the love and the learning. Have a good week, and talk to you next week, hopefully. Next to Mike, Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee for a final. G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC from G8EEY. Yes, you'd never have too many talk-through units available. I can run one mobile. Obviously, we have the fixed one. I say fixed, at the police headquarters in Wyndham, which is capable of operating on 16 channels on VHF and 16 on UHF, obviously crossband. So we'll always have an option. I used that option on Exercise Paratum when my local setup went a bit strange on me, so I called Bob, HSTU, and asked him to run his talk-through up, and I ran control through that. So there's always ways of doing it. Yes, the local voluntary and faith section of the LRF have a WhatsApp account, which they send information on. I must admit, I find it very annoying. Yes, the information when it comes is quite useful, but I don't really need to know what sort of cake somebody's going to have in their tea break. There's too much what I call this social business of stuff that is not relevant to the operation at the time. So most of the time, I don't listen to it. That's a shame. Sometimes it's days before I answer. From G8EEY.
Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC. Yes, well, maybe this is heading into next week's theme. Hasn't happened too much today, but it was close. My phone was pinging every few seconds as one of the chat groups was exchanging one or two word messages back and forth. And the ping, ping, ping can be, as you say, a great distraction. It has its uses, but some of the uses aren't actually what we need. So I totally agree about it degenerating into chat. The other one is if somebody knows you're running singly on controller on an outstation and then can hear you talking, but then phones you up anyway. Is another one that can be a little bit amusing sometimes. Okay, Mike, have a good week. Talk to you next week, hopefully. And we'll move down to Jim, Golf 7, Delta Papa Echo, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, G4 and RC, G7DP returning. Oh, yeah, some interesting points there, Greg. Yeah, we've got a WhatsApp group for ourselves. We don't use it as a tactical piece of technology for the simple reason that GSM is, in certain areas, totally unreliable. We have some serious dropout points when we're operating in the Chiltern Hills, particularly down towards Midmingham, down towards Henley. It can be very hit and miss whether you even get a phone signal. So we have the crossband link. We have talked through up on some nice high ground, and our operator that operates the system there is fully aware that if we go down, particularly on the Marlow half marathon, where we're located right down by the River Thames in Marlow, with the 77's uplink through the trees of all things to his position up on the hills. He knows that if we drop out, he's got no chance of actually getting back to us either on DMR or on GSM. He can get to other people, but not to us. So he knows to take over until we can regain contact. Yeah, too much interest and no reliability, I'm afraid, on WhatsApp, but useful for everyday communication between the groups. Back around to you, Greg. G4 NRC, G7 DPE.
G7 DPE, G4 NRC. Of course, the other thing, which not sure, Graham, whether we ever try putting onto the live stream on time, is that if you've got that kind of backup failover control, then having a common log sheet kind of helps, which is the way this net has managed to survive as long as it has, because while I'm doing most of the talking, Trevor is doing some of the logging and keeping track of who's next, and we're both working on a common sheet accessible over the cloud, and that could just as easily be accessed over a amateur Wi-Fi 44 net AREDN net link as well. Okay, thanks, Jim. Have a good week. Look forward to talking to you soon. Next day for a final. Mike 7, Alpha Victor Oscar, G4 NRC, over.
G4 NRC, Mike 7, Alpha Victor Oscar, and hopefully just getting better with this microphone. Just got a couple of curls to fix, and it's curly cord as it's been obviously packaged in the shop, so I need to straighten that out and get it sorted. But no, not more to add this end, Greg. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this lovely afternoon, and just thinking about getting dinner on. Hopefully catch you next weekend. Sorry I missed last night's 4 meters, wasn't it? But I'm still antenna problems, hoping to get resolved in the near future. Back to you, Mike 7, Alpha Victor Oscar.
Mike 7, Alpha Victor Oscar, G4 NRC. Yep, no problem. And yeah, talk to you soon. You said something there that just provoked me about operations and stuff. Oh yes, while we've been doing this this weekend, our German colleagues have had a bit of a training session out in the field doing Wi-Fi links and so on, which is something I'll try and get more information out of them about how they're doing it. Because it's just something else to play with. Okay, thanks, Dave. Next, it's Graham. G7 on the H, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, on the H returning for the final. Not a lot to add from me. Just to say that, I meant to say before, that the Jackery 500 performed very well today. And I think when we'd finished, running the talk through for a good few hours, and charging up 2 mobile phones, it was still on about 82%, and didn't even need to put the solar panel on to give it a bit more charge. So there we go. Yeah, like Dave, I'm just sorting out getting the tea on. So there we go. Okay, thanks for doing that, Greg, and we'll speak to you later. G4NRC, G7H.
7 and the 8, G4 and RC. Yes, I think it's 4 hours or so. Probably you were on, maybe 5. 82% is good. What just struck me though about the theme of preparedness was maybe having the solar panel on from the very start. No point waiting to find out it was getting a bit dark and you only had less than 50% left. Keeping it topped off all the way through might have been, well, be interesting to know how it did for noise and how noisy any internal charger or inverter was. But we can play with that another time. Okay, next to Philip for a final. G4KIL, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC, G4KIL. Thanks very much, Greg. Yeah, a few points I think that came up on that last one. I mentioned about CTCSS. I don't think I was particularly suggesting that we would get everybody to put on CTCSS on the event during the event or change it during the event. I was just more thinking that certainly as far as I know, it's still the case that as far as we're concerned and the adjacent groups near us are concerned, there's an agreement of sort of standardised CTCSS tones, along with nominal frequencies, which are different anyway. But if we had to get a jump to a frequency that was the same, that would help. I mean, again, we would normally, if I use the Yaesu terminology, by default only have the encode on, so that you'd hear if there was somebody else interfering, but you could switch the decode on. I guess that could be an issue if somebody didn't know how to do it. So that, I guess, is what I was suggesting. Yes, in terms of WhatsApp, we use it again as a background thing. At the moment, this is mostly used. I think we've been encouraged to send photos of our checkpoints in so they can stick them on the web or something like that. Is used for that. And some of the liaison beforehand, but certainly where we are, South Downs Way is one of our key areas we work in. Quite a few places in the South Downs Way don't have any phone signal, so and we've had similar experiences, I think you said, about people, marshals using radio type apps on phones and then finding that they don't work because they haven't got the link. Also, there's mention of Olivia and JSA Call. Well, as you know, Greg, I've worked with Olivia on the HSNet, and I think I've probably worked you on JSA Call as well, at least once. The interesting thing about that, from my point of view, the JSA Call I've got on a Raspberry Pi. The Olivia with FL Digi I can do on the Pi or on my Chromebook, which has got a Linux option on it. But I haven't been able to get the JSA Call to work on that. It comes up with an error when I run it. So if anybody did know about getting that, I think I did actually see a website about it it's a few years old, and they had to do a lot more work at the time to get it on the Chromebook. But I maybe have to have a look through that because I think it's not recognising the interface to the radio as a sound card. So I think that was the problem, I think. The only other thing I was going to mention before I signed was I don't know if it was just my end, but I noticed at 4:42 when you were talking, Greg, there was noise on your interference on your transmission today, and the person that followed you had noise on theirs as well. But it seems to have gone away now. I just thought I'd mention it.
in case you wanted to look back on the recording, and if you weren't aware of it. Okay, very good. Thanks for on. I'm not likely to be on next week because I'm involved with a non-RAYNET event, which takes the whole weekend. So I'm not likely to be on next week. Hopefully I'll be back on again the week after. And again, I'm not likely to make the RAYNET HFs at the moment, but hopefully catch up for that at some stage. Back to you then, G4NRC, back from G4KL, signing, just listening.
G4KIL, G4NRC. Okay, I shall roll back through the recording and see what the noise was. Interesting how it could affect two people, especially on a digital mode. And JS8 call I'm running on a laptop. I've got that as a bit of a challenge. I wasn't looking at it as a challenge until you just give me that little piece of information. But I recovered an old radio that was intended, of all things, for PSK31. It was a single frequency 80-meter transceiver. The idea was you could have run lots of data, well, lots of PSK31 out through it with a very simple interface. It's 1 kilohertz off the current JS8 frequency, so I was going to try and persuade it down in frequency and try anyway, and then see if we could use it as a more permanent JS8 call station rather than dedicating a big power-hungry radio to it. Right, enjoy your event next week. I don't think we have many to go on the net at all now, so next is Trevor, G4KUJ, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC in the group, G4KUJ. Yeah, okay, yeah. Very interesting episode today. Lots of points coming out for discussion. Around FLDG and other modes through QO100, as I think you know, I've failed miserably, as has David, to get MT63 to work, which you would have thought was a good goer. Knowing from experience his performance on HF. The only thing I haven't noticed is that if I monitor the CW beacons and also my own carrier, if I transmit that, despite the fact that the LMB is locked to the PSK beacon on QO100, if you look at the waterfall, you don't get a vertical line. You get a wobbly line, which changes over sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, and that can give a plus or minus 10 to 15 hertz wobble on the frequency. And I think that may be causing some problems with some of the other modes. But I've been looking at the FLDG handbook to see if I can get to the bottom of that. But some more work to do there. But certainly FLDG, Olivia works a treat. And I must admit, 75 board RCT is very reliable as well. Anyway, cheers for now. I shall monitor till the end. And have a good week, everyone. G4NRC in the group, G4KUJ.
G4KUJ, G4NRC. Yeah, that I think is where the going down into the weeds of the mode descriptions help. That if you're seeing wobble on the waterfall, then depending if the mode is phase modulated or not, that might give some bad results. Just saying. So it might not be a problem with the mode, but just overall stability if things are sort of shaking around a bit. However, I'm sure research will give a good answer. Would explain though why MT63 isn't working as well as it could be through that, but does work very well on HF if you want speed, and was frequently used by Steve G4HPE on GP2RS, as I remember. Anyway, we have one station left, so glory of being the last one on the net this time is Ian, Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, G3ZHX, same at last. Regarding CTCSS, we've never had so much trouble as when we went to wide split and CTCSS, more or less at the same time. I ended up with radios programmed for input frequencies, output frequencies, CTCSS on, CTCSS off, and a useful technique that I have used in the past is to have the normal frequency set, but only encode, do not decode, so you can hear everything on the channel, and you just have to work out for yourself whether or not it's relevant to the event, which at the time seemed fairly reasonable. Yes, I'll leave it with that. So, good afternoon to all, and thanks for running that, Greg, and I'll leave it to you to close down now from G3ZHX.
G3ZHX, G4NRC. Okay, yeah, thanks for tying the ribbon so nicely, Ian. As the camera has shown, I've got to start hitting the water bottle before coughing and spluttering starts after being on control for quite a bit today. So we'll close the net, thanking everybody for taking their time out on what for a lot of us is a sunny, warm afternoon. And thank you for taking part today. Be careful, have a good week, and until next Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time, I'll now close the RAYNET-UK weekly activity period on 23531 Pheonix and Brandmeister and 50235331 on the RAYNET-UK server, and return those talk groups to being an open net rather than a directed one. 730, this is Golf 4 November Romeo Charlie now closing and reverting to my normal call sign of Golf 0 Delta Uniform Bravo. Bye bye.